Hey, good morning, everybody. What's going on? This is Average Discussion. Today is Thursday, February 22nd. It's about 37 degrees here in the outskirts of the Salt Lake City area. Hey, first thing I want to point out is that I do apologize for any background noise. My normal spot that I usually hang out in and record is, well, there was people there today, and so I tried to find a new spot. I went out to as far west as I could go in the township that I live in, and there's a big open lot there, and I was going to go there, but it was riddled with semi trucks, sleeping for the night. Can't blame them. So I drove out a little bit further on this road that goes out to one of the islands out here in the Great Salt Lake, and there's a lot more traffic out here than I anticipated. So I do apologize if you hear some background noise, like you might hear the cop that's on his way west on I-80 here. So I do apologize, but hey, this is all on my dime, and I don't really have a studio, so I try to just go wherever I can go and get it done. Let's see. So one thing I will say is that the view here is much better. I don't know how to really describe it. I'll put some pictures up maybe on the video or something like that. But long story short, the view is a lot better. I was hoping to catch a better glimpse of the sunrise. I got up a little early this morning, a little earlier than normal. I still not much earlier, but earlier enough, and I thought maybe I'd be able to catch a good sunrise here, but unfortunately it's a little bit overcast today. There's still quite a bit of clouds in the sky, so I missed the opportunity for that, but I got some good pictures nonetheless. But yeah, so biggest thing is, like I said, I want to apologize for any background noise, because this is not the normal spot where I generally record my audio. So yeah, but either way, it's Thursday. It means it's almost Friday. All right. Everybody always says thank God it's Friday. I usually like to think like thank God it's Wednesday, because that means it's almost the end of the week. Obviously not everybody works a Monday through Friday gig, so maybe this is their Monday. So I do apologize for maybe making you feel a little crappy about that. But regardless, it's almost Friday for me, and I'm looking forward to that, because, well, I just kind of want to do whatever I want to do, and I'm not really a fan of having these obligations anymore. Adulting sucks. So that's just my opinion. But I do enjoy this. It gives me a little bit of a little bit of a mental break to kind of do some things that I'm interested in. I'm starting to enjoy the advertising that I do on social media a little bit more. I don't know how effective it is, but I'm enjoying it nonetheless. And at the end of the day, hey, listen, I guess it goes like this. Hopefully people find this and they enjoy it, and it can continue to grow. But at the end of the day, it makes me feel better, and it's something that I enjoy doing. It gets a little frustrating, because I don't know how I can make it bigger, if I even really should make it bigger. But I hope that at the end of it, whenever I decide to be done with it, or whatever the case may be, that I feel like I could at least say that I've spread some goodness in the world, and maybe help somebody out in the long run. So, but either way, this is Average Discussion. If you're not familiar with the show, I'm an average guy. Okay, I don't claim to have all the facts. 99.9% of everything that comes out of my mouth is an opinion that's probably not backed up by any kind of fact. I do try to read from sources every now and then. I don't like to just give outlandish things, right? But I do give my opinionated perspective on those. And that probably doesn't jive with everybody, and I totally understand that. So, I cover a lot of news. I have been trying to stay away from politics, but I don't know if you've looked at the news, guys. It's kind of hard to not. I literally went to the health section this morning when I was doing my notes, and in the health section, there was politics. So, the writing's on the wall. What are politics doing in our health, right? But hey, it is what it is. I can't control that. So here we go. So like I said, Average Discussion is for me, and it's things that I think and hope that people out there might be interested in as well. I cover a lot of news topics, but I like to cover things that may not be in your immediate social media feed, right? I don't want to cover the things that you're going to be bombarded with every time, you go to get a coffee and it's on the TVs there, or you're listening to the radio and it's the headline news that they're going to spill. I try not to cover those things because, one, I feel like you already know it, right? I'm here to try to give you some things that maybe you didn't stumble across because maybe you're not like me and like to go through the entire list of news articles to find stuff, right? So I like to kind of present that out there. So these are generally overviews and my opinions on them. And then I'm starting to tie them into things. If you go back and listen to some of my other episodes, I'm starting to tie them into things that are kind of in line with where my mind kind of takes me sometimes, right? So, case in point, the first article I'm going to get into here today. If you remember a few weeks back, probably, I covered this article about Neanderthals, okay? And I've always stated that it's really strange to me how dumb and archaic we believe these creatures were, right? But yet, at the same time, we had to have been close enough to interbreed because genetically we carry traits of them, right? So it's a strange concept to me to just assume such an archaic way of being, right? And I tried to tie that into my thought process of, I think it's very possible that, there was far advanced civilizations than we give credit to. And I'm not saying in the sense that like they had flying cars or anything like that, okay? What I'm saying is that perhaps they were more than just cave dwellers, and we don't give enough credit to the possibility of that, in my opinion, right? So either way, this article today from CNN it says Neanderthal glue points to complex thinking, okay? It says Neanderthals likely made a type of glue from two natural compounds to help them better grip stone tools, according to new analysis of forgotten artifacts recently rediscovered in a Berlin museum. The ability to make an adhesive substance from... My goodness. I need to take a drink. Hold on. All right. And this is the background noise. This is what I was talking about. Way more traffic out here than I anticipated. I feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere, but apparently that's where all the work happens. So, not mad at these guys that are out there making their dollar. Just did not anticipate that. So I do apologize for the background noise, guys. All right. So anyways, the ability to make an adhesive substance from disparate ingredients shows that the ancient hominids were able to engineer materials for their own needs and opens a window into their thinking patterns, says Patrick Schmidt, a researcher from the University of TUBINGENS, Department of Early Prehistory and Quaternary Ecology, who led the study. The fact that Neanderthal made such a substance gives insight into their capabilities and their way of thinking, he said. The stone tools... the stone tools were unearthed around 1910 at a French archaeological site called Le Mousteur, Mouster, Moustier. You'd think I would be able to say that. Listen, a little bit of background. I took 4 years of French when I was in school, and I'll tell you this much right now. I haven't spoke a lick of it since, and I can remember like one or two basic phrases. Yeah, if you don't use it, you lose it, guys. But anyways, the scientists believe Neanderthals used the stone tools were unearthed in 1910 at the French archaeological site, and scientists believe Neanderthals used them between 120,000 and 40,000 years ago. Since the 1960s, the tools had been untouched and individually wrapped at the Museum of Prehistory and Early History in Berlin. Their existence only came to light during a recent internal review of the collection. When Schmidt and his colleagues examined the artifacts in detail for the first time, they found tools still carried the residue of organic substances, including traces of ochre, not really sure how to pronounce that word, OCHER, a naturally occurring earth pigment, and vitamin which exists in soil, although it can also be produced from crude oil. So what this means is that they acted as early engineers, creating materials according to their needs, Schmidt said. Another point is that getting the materials represented quite an investment, as they came from different regions lying far away from each other. This means that these grips had a high value for their makers. So I wanted to read that part out because I like the way that he phrased it, right? He says, what this means is that they acted as early engineers, which I wouldn't say gives, fact to my thought process. Sorry, guys. I wouldn't say that it gives fact to my thought process, right? But what I would say is it kind of pushes it towards what I kind of think. Like, I don't think that we're giving enough credit to the, we see these reconstructions, and I'm not saying that these people are lying or wrong. What I'm saying is that I think they're just assuming, right? It's like, if I want to paint a picture of what I think an alien looks like, then, I go out there and I take what I've heard other people say and I formulate this idea and I say, this is what I think it looks like, right? And I'm not saying that, like, I know that they use a lot of, softwares that can kind of, reconstruct things. What I'm saying is we get this image of this, like, half monkey, half man, hairy fucking knuckle dragging person. And I don't know that that's entirely accurate, I've seen things about dinosaurs, for instance, where, now they're starting to suggest that certain dinosaurs that we thought were like reptile skinned, at least in my childhood and what I was taught, probably had feathers, right? And so I'm not saying that they're wrong or that they're lying. I really do believe that they just use the best information that they have. I'm not trying to knock them or discredit them. All I'm saying is that perhaps we're maybe wrong, and we don't give enough credit to what possibly could have been. You know what I mean? Because we assume that if it's not what we know as sophistication in this world in this time frame, that it's archaic, right? But I think you can make a lot of arguments that this is probably way more advanced than anything that they came up with. I'm not one of those people that's out there saying that they had like spaceships and shit, okay? But so this is way more advanced technologically probably than anything that they ever had. I would argue that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. You know what I'm saying? And that just because we chose to go this path doesn't mean that a previous civilization before was interested in going down this path, right? Because morals and values and things like that can change generationally, right? And so if their desire was never to go in the direction that we inevitably have ended up at, that doesn't mean that they weren't sophisticated. That doesn't mean that they weren't capable of things, right? And I think that the general public, at least, gets trapped in that idea that, well, they didn't have computers and shit, so they were, archaic, right? And, my conspiracy brain, all right, so this is completely left field. I'll get back to articles in a second, but dang it, this is my show and I want to talk about this. My conspiracy brain wants me to believe that there's a reason they want us to think Neanderthals are stupid. That's just where I'm at with it, because it doesn't make sense to me that a species that lived as long as they say that they did, which I think was like anywhere from 200,000 to 40,000 years ago, was not able to achieve anything. And we look for a lot of archaeological stuff to try to support our claims, right? And I don't know that we necessarily will find them, right? I mean, think of it like this. One of the biggest practices of ancient cultures was not burying their dead. They would do ceremonial burnings, right? And so you're going to be left with ash. And if you do find anything, it's going to be small portions of it, right? How many cultures did that, right? So like when we look at things like the mummies in Egypt, right? Well, those are preserved, and we're able to see those, and so we look at that and we're like, yeah, this is one of the oldest cultures. But what if that practice wasn't part of the oldest culture, right? And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to get out there and say that everything that we're told is a lie. I'm not one of those guys. Okay, all I'm saying is that we utilize the facts that are best known to us in the moment to come up with where we're at. And though most of those facts stay, right, we do have situations where we discover new information and that theory kind of starts to change, right? So I don't have any of that evidence, all right? So I'm just speculating. It's complete speculation. It's for discussion purposes only, right? But we know that happens, and it doesn't happen on a large scale. I know when a lot of people say that, they're like, oh, science changes their mind all the time. I don't think they really change their mind all the time. I think they just, there's certain things in certain situations where they discover new evidence or whatever may have you, and then their opinion starts to kind of shift, but their basis is generally always usually the same, right? So all I'm trying to argue is that I don't know that Neanderthal was as archaic and dumb as we've been led to believe, at least in my childhood, right? And I think the better that technology gets, the more stuff we're going to find, right? And I don't know. So that's why this article is interesting to me. And I brought up the Neanderthal thing the other day, and I just wanted to kind of lead off with that. But this next article, also by CNN, points out kind of what I was just saying, right? It says, a famous fossil is really just paint, rocks, and a couple of bones, researchers say. A 280 million year old fossil, thought to be a well-preserved specimen of an ancient reptile, is largely a forgery, according to new research. The fossil, initially discovered in the Italian Alps in 1931, has the scientific name Tridentinosaurus antiquus. Who lets people name this shit? Just call it Bill, Bob, something. I don't know. Scientists thought the dark, deep outline of the lizard-like body encased in rock was skin and soft tissue, and they considered the fossil to be a puzzle piece for understanding early reptile evolution. So, long story short, I think it said in 2021, maybe 2022, they decided to do some testing on what they thought was this skin. Turns out that it's pretty much just paint. So it completely shattered what they thought they knew about this fossil. Okay. Now, so what that means, for almost 100 years, because they said 1931, right? So about 90 years, they believed this specimen to be a valuable source, a valuable find, right? And lo and behold, 90 years later, we find out, no, it was just probably a bunch of people who were bored or stranded, and they ate the internals of the lizard and then decided to like encase it in the wall or something. So all I'm saying is that kind of stuff happens, right? And I'm not knocking the people in 1931, nor am I knocking the people now, right? What I'm saying is that we have to change our thought process periodically based off of new information that we find, right? And this is a prime example of that. So when you go back to the concept and the idea of the Neanderthal, I feel like it's a very similar thing. Like, the amount of new information that I've seen over the last, say, 12 months regarding Neanderthals has constantly been changing, and they're giving more credence to the fact that, hey, maybe these beings were a little bit more intelligent than we give credit to, right? And so I don't think that it's that far-fetched that they could have been very, very much more intelligent than we give them credit for. So that's all I'm getting at. So those are the things I'm interested in. I don't know. But if you also remember, a few weeks ago, I was talking about your Stanley Cups, right? And I was telling you about how I thought my daughter wanted like a replica of like the NHL trophy or something, because I didn't know that Stanley Cups were a popular thing, right? Well, anyways, two things. One, I didn't put it in my notes because I saw it after I kind of compiled everything, but apparently they're being sued for the amount of lead that's in their products. So interesting there. But is your emotional support water bottle causing overhydration? And they obviously use the Stanley Cup craze to kind of outline what they're talking about. And basically what they're talking about is they're saying that, this idea that we need to have this water by us at all times is actually probably not good for us in a lot of occasions, that a lot of people are probably over drinking water. Now, in most cases, there's no negative side effects of that. You just pee it out, right? But if you have an underlying kidney disease or kidney issue, it could be problematic for you if you're drinking more water than you really need, right? So the National Academy of Medicine recommends 3.7 liters or 125 ounces of water per day for men and 2.7 liters, 91 ounces, for women, which account for water intake from all food and beverages throughout the day. While many stick to the common advice of drinking 8 cups of water a day, 1.9 liters or 64 ounces, which is easy to remember and typically keeps a person at good level of hydration. Some people may need to drink less, while others may need to drink more, right? So basically it's saying hey, listen, if you're doing active things, obviously you're probably going to need more water. But if you're just sitting around, you probably don't need more water, right? And I think that's really what it kind of boils down to. But it's interesting because it did go on to say, you shouldn't have to force yourself to drink water. And I just, I don't know. I'm conflicted about that because I had to do forced hydration. And now, arguably, I was in a lifestyle where I was extremely active. So dehydration was a very real thing that could happen to us. So the forced hydration was to make sure that people weren't going to fall out from dehydration, right? So I don't know. I think there's times where maybe forced hydration is a good thing. But I'm not a doctor or a scientist, so don't take that to the bank. That's just my personal experience. But either way, the article that I was talking about a few days ago or a week ago or whatever it was talking about how, the craze for these cups or whatever is, the logic behind it was to reduce the amount of water bottles at the landfills, right? And ended up, because apparently people just go out to the ocean and just decide to throw them in the ocean. I still believe personally that most of that is probably from either spillways or maybe they're dumping shit in the ocean and just don't want to tell us, and they're just blaming us. Much like, they blame us for all the climate change and global warming, but, industry went unchecked for centuries. So, I'm not saying that we don't contribute to it. All I'm saying is that, if you want to talk about who's put the most nasty shit into the sky, it's not the everyday person. It's the businesses. It's the governments. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're just dumping trash in the middle of the ocean and trying to cover it up, and it just finds its way up. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying that's what they're doing. It just wouldn't surprise me. But that was the basis behind the article that I talked about a few days ago, was that this was the idea, reduce water bottles and this and that, and you just have one that you use and this and that. But then it became a trendy thing, right? And so now you have 5 to 10 of them in your house, and eventually you're going to reach a point where you just toss them out, right? Or the handle's going to break and you just throw it away instead of just drinking it without a handle. You know what I mean? Because that's our mentality, right? Is that we use, we waste. I'm going to go ahead and pause this till after this train passes by, so hang on just a second. Okay, I think he's done with the horn, so I'll go ahead and pick back up. But like I said, the idea was that it gets rid of some of the trash or whatever. But then, like I said, it became a trendy thing. And, Americans aren't the only ones, but we're definitely a big part of it, where the mentality is just use it, toss it, get a new one. You know what I mean? And so I don't know that it's going to have the desired effect that they want long term. Obviously, it's going to be better. In the sense of, we'll probably have less water bottles, but I don't know that we really will, because cases of water still go like crazy at the stores. Most places aren't, they don't facilitate, water refills. You know what I mean? I remember a while back I did this article about water, and it was talking about Paris. And how Paris had started putting systems throughout the city to be able to refill these water bottles, right? So you'd just be walking and there was water sources, you know what I mean? And I thought it was really ingenious. And when I read that, I was just like, I don't understand why that's not a normal thought process, right? Like, I have to go into a convenience store, right? Or hopefully a public building that has a water fountain that wasn't blocked off from the 2020 time frame, and that they actually reopened it, right? Those are all things that I gotta hope for, and it didn't make it doesn't make sense to me. Like, we have all these advancements, and we stake our claim on how advanced we are and how great we are, and water is kind of one of those things that like like, think about the Romans. Like, they were remembered for their aqueducts, right? Their and their roads, their aqueducts and their roads, and then obviously their coliseums and stuff too, right? But like, those are the basic things that they try to tell you about in terms of that age period, right? And so it's like, we have all that, and we still, like, you still have to, yeah, we have running water at our homes and things like that, right? But if we're out and about, like, we don't really have access to it, right? So it is kind of weird, but it's not that hard to get water. But it just didn't make sense to me that why we haven't thought about that. Like, yeah, just run a water line. But either way, I'm sure there's a bazillion reasons why every little township and city government can tell you why they won't do that. But so in more recent news, and hopefully this doesn't affect anybody, but it probably could. Apparently, their cell phone outage hits AT&T customers nationwide. Verizon and T-Mobile users also affected. Tens of thousands of AT&T customers have been reporting outages in the morning for their home phone, internet, mobile phone services, according to Down Detector. The outages started popping up just before 3:30 a.m. Eastern Time, according to a graph shown on the website that tracks outages. Verizon says that their network is operating normally. Some customers experienced issues this morning when calling or texting with customers served by another carrier. We are continuing to monitor the situation. An update was presented that texts, like text messages, to 911 from affected AT&T users are now being received. If you have an emergency and cannot dial out, send a text message to 911. Flagler County Sheriff's Office in Florida posted in a subsequent post to X, formerly known as Twitter. I say that all the time because it sounds super weird. Being like, yeah, follow me on X, where I'm raving and touching myself. Like, it's just, it's super weird to me. After altering people nearly an hour and a half prior about the outage. Okay, whatever. So what they're saying is that if you can't call, text. And if you can't text, well, hopefully you can call. What a strange world we live in, right? Like, all of our advancements, and one little thing goes down and it creates a shitstorm. All of the things that we've hinged our egos on, how fragile they are. The thin line between humanity and chaos is electricity. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about. Because we take it for granted. We really do. Like, I feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere, but all the semi traffic, I'm clearly not. But for all intents and purposes, like, I'm not really in a heavily populated area. So, like, if I get done with this recording and my truck doesn't start, which the way my luck's been going recently, that might actually happen. But my car battery died the other day. About 2 weeks ago. I went out to start my other truck because I hadn't started in a while. Fucking batteries were dead. So the way my luck's going with vehicles right now, that's a very real possibility. That I get done with this recording and I go to listen back to it so I can make sure that it's something I should be putting out there, because sometimes I get off on a tangent and I've probably said a lot of things I shouldn't say, and not because I'm afraid to say them, just because, one, they're either not really thought out and they're emotional responses, but two, sometimes there's just certain things in life that don't need to be said, and I think I've done a pretty good job of that, but I'm pretty sure I fall short of that every now and then, right? So I try to listen to them and make sure that it's something I should actually put out there. But anyways, so with all of our greatness, I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere. I get done recording and I go start my truck, doesn't start. I know that I can call somebody and be like, hey, this is where I'm at. I can send them my location, and hey, can you come give me a jump start or give me a hand or whatever, right? But all that hinges on the availability to use this device that I'm recording this very podcast on. Now, I can record without the internet or data or anything like that, but that doesn't mean that I can call anybody. So I guess I better start hoofing it. Now, clearly there's enough traffic here that if something was happening, I could flag down one of these 15 bazillion semi-trucks. But point being is that we do take it for granted, I think. And I don't know, it's kind of crazy. So in Tennessee, a governor signs law allowing public officials to decline to perform marriages they disagree with. Basically saying that if you have a here, I'll just get into it and what it outlines. So the measure known as SB 596, House Bill HB 878, excuse me, stated that a person shall not be required to solemnize a marriage if the person has an objection to solemnizing, whatever. All right, whatever. The marriage based on the person's conscience or religious beliefs. Now, originally, people were upset because they said it was interpreted by the LGBTQ activists to mean public officials could refuse to perform the ceremonies for same-sex marriages. But one of the bill's primary sponsors in the state, House Republican Representative Monty Fritz, said the bill could also combat elder abuse in situations where young people might be marrying some for access to financial accounts. Listen, come on, guys. I'm not saying that shit doesn't happen. I'm not like I've heard stories, I've read things, seen documentaries and stuff, right? Like, I know that's a thing, okay? But you cannot tell me that was your reasoning for putting this law into place. That's just your scapegoat to try to get these activists, these lettuce, bacon, tomatoes. I'm just kidding. That was uncalled for. The LGBTQ people, you're just trying to get them off your back, and you're coming up with some shenanigans about like, well, we want to protect the elderly, and we don't want them being forced into marriages that they don't agree with, but yet you're saying that you're allowing the people who perform the marriages to decline doing the marriages based off of like religious beliefs and stuff. And to the best of my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong, there doesn't seem to be any discrepancy between an old man marrying a young child in any religious text that I'm aware of. So I don't think it's going to fall in the realm of their religious beliefs. I'll tell you that much right now. So what a way to try to like just bounce that around. Like, that is the most old way of thinking distraction statement I've read in a while. Like, good and god dang well that the entire reason you put this into place is so that religious people who don't agree with homosexuality and things like that aren't forced legally to wed people, and that these people are going to have to find people who believe in their ideologies to wed them, which I don't think is a bad thing, by the way, okay? Like, I don't think if you're a Catholic priest and you don't believe in that stuff, that you should be forced to have to solemnize a marriage that goes against your faith, okay? I don't think that at all, especially knowing that there's courthouse representatives that are licensed to do the same thing, that you can be a member of those communities and you can go out and you can get your own license to do those things, because I know that they've even done that, right? So I don't think that it's a bad thing, by the way, to have something in place where people aren't forced to go against their moral convictions and their values, right? I'm not arguing whether they're right or wrong on those beliefs or those values, but they shouldn't be forced to have to go against them simply because of peer pressure or outside scrutiny, right? So, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that bill. Nothing. If that would be like, I don't know. That would be like me being a devout Christian or something, and then going to a Muslim. I don't know if they call them priests. I don't think they do, but we'll just, for lack of understanding the phrase, right? I'm just gonna say a Muslim priest, and being like, hey, you should wed me, and they're like, we only wed people of the Muslim faith, and I'm like, that's illegal. You can't deny me, right? So I 100% agree that should not be a problem, even if the issue is that you don't want those people to have to wed groups from that community, right? Because that community needs to go through and develop that themselves, right? And I know that they are, and that's, I think, the most frustrating part. Like, people just want to react to everything, you know what I mean? Like, the LGBTQ activists that were probably upset by this, they're not really upset because they feel like they're not going to be able to get married now. They just want to be upset because they feel like it's something to oust them, but it's really not. You know what I mean? In my opinion, it's really not. It's more to just define that, like, hey, listen, you don't have to legally go against your morals and values. That's how I interpret it. Obviously, I haven't read through the bill, but based off the breakdown of what they say it's about, I don't think it's a big deal. You know, and so there's no need to be like, well, we're elder abuse, and young people might be marrying someone for access to financial accounts. Yeah, I know that that's happened. You let me know the percentage of that. Let me know the percentage of that, especially in Tennessee, right? Because this is a Tennessee bill. So tell me what the statistics are about elderly people unknowingly being wed or being wed on their deathbed to young people for financial gain. And here's the kicker, that the older people are not okay with. Because I know that there's situations where, those things have happened, right? But I'd be willing to bet that most of the old people doing that are perfectly fine with it. And so, I think there was probably a bitter wife who lost an inheritance or something because in the last minute the husband married some 25-year-old and she inherited everything or whatever. Like, that's, in my opinion, that's where a statement like that stems from. Like, yeah, well, that's why we had to put it into place, No, just tell it how it is. You put a bill out there so that these folks weren't required to compromise their personal beliefs, their values, and nor should they have to. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, because it did say that it does not affect the bill, and it does not affect the requirements to get a license. So what they're basically saying, what I'm saying, without actually saying it, right? Dang, whatever happened out there on the freeway must have been bad. But they're basically saying what I'm saying, right? Like, this bill was put in place so that people didn't have to compromise their moral values. You can still get a license. By all means, feel free to come get a license, and you can wed all the homosexual couples that you want. Nobody's saying that you can't. All we're saying is that these people who don't want to be involved in that are not legally required to be a part of that, and they can decline the services should they choose. That's it. Instead, elders. Anyways, so if you're in Tennessee, that's happening there. So, and then some local news. This is probably the most political conversation of the day. And really, I just think it falls into, I talk about it on almost every episode that I do, the timing of things. It always interests me. And the deflection that they use to try to not make it look like it's a timing thing. I don't know. But why do Utah lawmakers want their calendars out of public view? Right? So they're talking about personal calendars, okay? Now, I didn't know that it was or wasn't a thing, okay? But public records for personal calendars has never been really attainable, right? But long story short, hold on, let me make sure I find the right information. Long story short, They want to put a bill out there to make sure that a political figure does not have to make known their public or make public their daily calendars. Okay. And so it's getting a lot of, I wouldn't say it's getting a lot of pushback. It's getting unanimous support because none of them want us to know what they're doing on a daily basis. Plus, and I didn't see it in this article, which I'm very surprised by. But in a lot of cases, it could probably be a safety concern, right? But this article takes it a little bit different. It says, the House said, I'm sorry. Dang it. I don't think I kept that part, so I'm sorry. But basically, it stems from this issue right here. It says Utah State Records Committee last year ordered Attorney General Sean Reyes to provide a calendar detailing his official meetings and activities to KSL, which is a local news agency here. The committee said Reyes could redact any personal meetings or appointments mingled into his official calendar. Reyes is challenging the order in the state court. So they weren't asking him for his personal one. They were asking him for his business-related one, right? This situation is in court for whatever reason. I didn't look into that, right? But it was cited that the Records Committee order as a reason for the bill, though his legislation wouldn't appear to impact the Reyes lawsuit, given it's already in the courts. So they put this bill into place. This guy's already in court for something, and apparently whatever it's for, and I should have done more research on that, but I didn't because I don't really care all that much. But whatever it's for, this part of it in particular seems to be impactful, right? Whatever's in this calendar seems to be impactful, right? And it says this is what a spokesperson said. It said this is not intended to address any court case, Bramble, whoever Bramble is, I can't remember, but rather clarify going forward that this is what the standard should be. Another provision in SB 240 clarifies third parties who go to court to prevent the release of records could be found liable for attorney fees if a judge eventually rules the records are public. Ever since the Utah legislature in 2011 effectively repealed the Utah Government Records Access and Management Act, or GRAMA, and then restored it, Bramble has been the go-to legislator for GRAMA bills. Okay? So he's saying, no, this isn't intended to address this court case, but it's coming on the coattails of this guy being in court, and clearly these records of his calendar are a prime example. Now, he goes on to say, So, Senator Mike Kennedy from Alpine, he was one of the yes votes. He says, we've been hearing some things, Kennedy said, about the President of the United States and the various Hunter Biden issues being referred to as, quote, the big guy, and that sort of thing. And it's really interesting to think how, if our calendars are inappropriately available, how we'll obscure those calendars. We'll figure out code words for people because the scrutiny associated with trying to meet with people and mediate issues, and all of a sudden, if you put the person's name in your meeting with a high-powered players in the Senate of Utah and accused of nefarious dealings and whatever it might be. So they don't want their publics to be record or their calendars to be public record because they don't want people to know that they're meeting with certain people. Because if those people are deemed, bad people all of a sudden, then they're now attached to that. Okay, that's a fair point to an extent, but at the same time, we already know that there's a lot of back end shit that goes on. There's a lot of dark of the night things that happen within politics, right? And I'm sorry. Now, maybe you don't need to put it out on your Twitter feed or your social medias, right? I'm not saying that, but if it's requested, it should be able to be seen. And I'm sure that probably still is, but for whatever reason, they want to make this a big deal. And it comes on the coattails of this attorney general guy having a lawsuit against him. And so when I break it down into the timing of things is always impeccable to me. Always impeccable to me. You know, and then the fact that they felt inclined to mention that, and I don't know, maybe it was because the person writing the article asked that question, right? But the fact that you had to put it out there that this isn't intended to address any court case tells me it's intended to address a court case, and maybe not to benefit that guy, but to CYA. You know what I mean? Oh yeah. No, see, I think that's what it is more than anything. That this bill is to CYA, cover your ass, right? Like, oh shit, he's getting hemmed up for this. We need to make sure we're all okay. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it. I don't really worry about it all that much because I know that politics is a shady business. So I just inherently assume there's nefarious things going on. I just inherently assume that there's people making backdoor deals and profiting immensely from things that probably aren't legal and arguably shouldn't be legal, or they're immoral and things like that. They're things that would get them not reelected if it was publicly known. And that's why they use those things to blackmail each other during elections. Like, we all know politics is a shady, corrupt business. So, and I'm sure this has a unanimous vote. Anything that's voted unanimously passed, yeah, it's shady. It benefits them, not us. Because the things that could potentially benefit us, right? There's always the split votes, and, you know, there's always people who disagree with it, whatever, right? But when it's things that cover their ass, oh yeah, unanimous. Like the only time you guys can all get on the same page, right? I don't know. But that is the topics of the day. Yeah, that's the topics of the day, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's see, I do my best to try to keep these around a half hour. I failed yesterday because I kind of got on the soapbox, and apparently I failed today. We're about 47 minutes in. But I think I had some interesting things to bring up. So I am curious about your feedback, though. What do you guys think about that bill? Do you think that it's a CYA thing? What do you think about Neanderthal, actually? Like, I'm actually really interested to know what people might think about that, because maybe I'm crazy. I mean, I got a whole pamphlet of paperwork that suggests that I'm crazy, but I don't feel that I'm crazy. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Yeah. But maybe I am. You know, what do you guys do? Do you guys think it's possible, or am I just trying to connect dots that aren't there type thing, you know? Or maybe it's a thing like I'm hoping. Like, I hope that that's the case, because, I mean, honestly, it's probably a lot of that, because I don't like to think that we are the pinnacle. I mean, I look at all the messed up stuff that we do. You know, I was reading this thing about the Chiefs Super Bowl party, right? And they were talking about the people who started the gunfire that killed one and injured like 20 people more or whatever. It all started over basically, I don't want to say gang activity, because like that, I think people have a misunderstanding of what that really means. But basically, like, that mentality. They were upset at some guy who was looking at them, and they confronted him. They asked him what he was looking at, and next thing you know, they start shooting. You know, and I look at that kind of stuff, and I'm just like, damn, right? I think about the things like we talked about before, water issues, right? You know, the things that we prioritize, the destruction that we do to ourselves, to our fellow man. I really don't like the idea that we're possibly the pinnacle, and I probably want to believe that there was something great before us, and that we could kind of refocus and maybe try to be more like, right? I think it's the same thing that people, you know, heavily involved in faith. I feel like that's the same thing for them. Like, I'm sure they do believe, but I think that they really want to believe that there's something greater than all this, because looking at our reality, it's a sad reality. And so that hope that there's something to something better to achieve and go towards, I think is what really draws it, right? And yeah, I don't know. But either way, there was one more thing I wanted to do. And so bear with me for just a second, because I don't want to get any of the facts wrong. Oh, I'm in the wrong Facebook profile. All right. Here we go. There was one more thing I wanted to do before I leave here. So yesterday I gave my shout out to the seniors of Grantsville High School. Right? So today I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine from my military time in Fort Bliss, Texas. I'm not going to say his last name, just because I don't know how he feels about all that. But a friend of mine named Kyle, him and his wife just had their baby, I believe. Yep. 13 hours ago is when it was posted, so probably about 15 hours ago. Their baby's here. She's been working on her oxygen levels a day in the NICU, but is progressing. So apparently there was, some minor issues, but the kid's doing well. So Kyle, congratulations to you and your wife on the birth of your child. I wish her a happy. It is a her, right, Lainey? Oh, sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that. I wish her a speedy recovery on whatever's going on. Super excited for you and your wife. Congratulations, man. Enjoy it. Happy for you. So I wanted to put that out there. I'm trying to do this thing where I'm being better about things. I don't know if he listens to the show. He probably doesn't, but if he does, hey, congratulations, man. Super excited for you. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because, like I said, I've already gone a half hour longer than I usually try to go. But I just kind of enjoying the view, actually, and I don't really want to go to work. So there's a lot of factors behind that. I really do work hard. Not really. But I can work hard. I just don't want to at the moment. And there's a lot of reasons for that I can discuss, but I don't feel that it's right. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. As always, guys, you can find me on Facebook, facebook.com, average discussion /average discussion. You can find me on Instagram at average discussion. You can find me on X where I'm dancing and touching myself at AVG discussion. It's the @ AVG discussion. It's on Spreaker, Spotify. We have the YouTube channel. Please head over to the YouTube channel. Check that out. I upload it as, you can just play it in the background. There's no real video content, but I will try to put some of the pictures that I took this morning of the location at which I'm recording that I'll probably put in that video. So if you're interested and you want to see, go ahead and check that out. It'll be up a little bit later. Yeah, you like the show, don't like the show, some topics, comments, bitches, gripes, complaints, death threats, whatever it might be, you can email me directly at average discussion. That's all one word, averagediscussion@gmail.com. Yeah, I think that's about it. So, hey, as always, guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful day. Please take care of yourself. Please take care of each other. And until next time, I'm out.